What started off as a small lie but then snowballed into this is my life now. One night in Vegas for a bachelor party, I got wasted and made a bet with a friend while we were out at the club. If you're wrong, you have to pretend to be British the rest of the night. I lost, and so I was British. A few moments later, I met a girl who started talking to me because she overheard me saying some BS to my friends in a British accent. She thought that I was British, and I went with it. I got intimate with the girl that night. But when I woke up with her the next morning, I realized I had to continue to be British. She said that we should hang out again that night. Sure. We met up that night and she brought all of her friends, who all think that I'm British. So I was British again but around more people. My friends were dying every time I spoke. One tried to be Australian around the girl's friends but was called out for being a fraud. My fraudulence continued to go unnoticed. I had to answer all kinds of questions about my life and childhood. I had never been to the United Kingdom. Fortunately, I was an English literature major and had watched 3 or 4 British movies. Mostly Monty Python. Thus, I was more or less an expert on all things British. Eventually, I got tired of doing the accent, so I started saying deliberately incorrect things about England to see if someone would call me out. Turns out that 21-year-old American women are too dumb to know a single thing about England, so they were incapable of pointing out my BS. I like to think that, to this day, 12 years later, there are girls out there who think that the British invented tea and only drink it on Wednesdays, that Cromwell was a benevolent leader who gave out free pheasant to the impoverished Irish, that James Bond was written by an Indian guy, and that the only reason that Brits are known to dress nicely is that it's illegal to not wear a tie on weekdays. The accent took over my mind so completely that when a guy in line at that restroom said something to me in a very clearly English accent, I instinctively responded in an English accent. He got excited. I realized what I had done, but just went with it and he introduced me to his mates. They mentioned that they couldn't pinpoint where I was from. I told them my mom was American and I lived half my life in Maine, and that's why I have a strange accent. Somehow they went with it. I brought the Brits back to our group, so now I had British homies. My friends couldn't believe it. I've entered British level 5000. So many level ups in so short a time. I got intimate with that girl again and even talked dirty to her Britishly. I said I've come instead of I'm coming. The next morning, I admitted to her that I wasn't British. She didn't believe me and refused to accept that I was American. Whatever, I guess I was British for one more day. Thanks, Maggie, for the good time. A couple of weeks ago, my girlfriend said I was invited to dinner with her and her parents. I was very aghast, nervous, and bashful to be invited to such a situation. But I knew it must be done. I met them nicely and it started off well. For some reason, the idea slapped my mind that I should do a comic bit, to make a good impression and become known to them as a person who is amusing. So when I saw that baked potatoes were served, I thought that it would be very good if I pretended I did not know what potatoes were. That would be funny. So first when the potato became on my plate, I acted very interested. I showed an expression on my face so as to seem that I was confused and astounded but in a restrained way. Curious if you will. They did notice, and seemed confused, but did not remark. So I asked, "This looks very interesting. What is this?" They stared at me and the mother said it's a baked potato. And I said, "Oh, interesting, a baked, what is it again?" And she was like, "A potato." "A potato, oh interesting. Never heard of a potato, looks pretty good." They didn't see I was clowning and thought I really did not know what is a potato. I knew I would be very ashamed, humiliated, depressed, and disgusted if I admitted to making a bad joke, so I acted as if it was not a joke and committed to the act of pretending I didn't know what a potato is. They asked me, very incredulous, did I really not know what a potato is? I went with it and told them, yes, I did not ever even hear of a potato. Not only had I never eaten a potato, I had never heard the word potato. This went on for a bit and my girlfriend was acting very confused and embarrassed by my messed up antics. I had to commit 100% at this point. When I would not admit to knowing what a potato was, my father began to get annoyed. At one point he said, "Enough is enough. You're messing with us. Admit it." "Sir, before today I never heard of a potato. I still don't know what a potato is, other than some kind of food. I don't know what to tell you." "Well, let me tell you," he got very annoyed. I decided to take a bite of the potato, and when I did I made a high-pitched noise and said, "Tastes very strange." That is when the father started yelling at me, and the mother kept saying, "What are you doing?" And my girlfriend went to some other room. Finally, the father said I should get out of his house and I said it was irrational to treat me like this just because I never heard of a potato before. He didn't take that kindly. Now in text messages, I've been telling my girlfriend I really don't know what a potato is. The only way I can ever get out of this is for them to buy that I don't know what a potato is. I wish I never started it but I can't go back. I think she will break up with me anyway. In 2009 I was working a dead-end job, living paycheck to paycheck. My girlfriend and I were continually struggling with the stress of financial difficulty, and I could never get a job in the industry I wanted to work in. April of that year, I was sitting in the passenger seat of our little car, while my wife was driving. We got T-boned on the passenger side, which crumpled the entire side of the car and banged me up pretty good. When I got out of the car to check if my wife was okay, I started to feel a minor throbbing in my leg but quickly composed myself and ran over to check on the other driver. He was fine but he was pissed he hit us and immediately admitted blame. So we sort out the towing exchange information, and I go home. That night I get a frantic call from my brother. He always calls asking for help. I was like, "Look man, we were just in a bad car accident, and my leg is really feeling messed up, I can't help you." My brother was stunned and told me that I need to go to the doctor. But I was mostly exaggerating. My leg was just bruised up, and I didn't want to go out and lend a hand. The next day my leg is a bit stiff and I started to feel a bit lazy, so I called into work saying I'm having trouble standing up after the accident. They say no worries and that I should work from home and take it easy. So I spend the day playing World of Warcraft and eating old Chinese food. My girlfriend came home, and I was really just feeling lazy, so I make this big scene of not being able to walk easily to help out. She immediately takes me to the doctor, and despite protesting, they send me off for x-rays. While they are waiting, the nurse suggests that I start looking into a lawyer since this was an auto collision. I don't know what I was thinking, but I just went along with it and started faking this injury. The x-rays came back negative for any breaks, but there was a possibility of a dislocation that righted itself, so I just said, yeah, I think there was a sharp pain during the impact. Anyways, I went on short-term disability and my girlfriend was forced to carry the weight. Then I went on long-term disability and started going through physical therapy, which I faked my way through. 12 months later, I'm done faking and I've recovered from my injury. I'm at a party with some friends who introduced me to this guy who heard my story and my struggles. He was so impressed by my perseverance that he offered me a salary job. It was nothing crazy, something like $45K a year, but when you've been working retail it's huge. Then came a $100K settlement which my GF and I used to buy our first house. 4 years later, I'm making over $150K, have been promoted multiple times, and got married. I literally owe it all to being a lazy bum who faked a sick day following a car accident so he could PvP in World of Warcraft all day.